for me, the answer would be like if Göbekli Tepe turned out to be what you think it might have been, the place where advanced ancient civilization once inhabited or they used it. Where are the metal tools?
Beneath the dry hills of southeastern Turkey lies a mystery older than the pyramids, older even than writing itself. Göbekli Tepe.
Göbekli Tepe, brother, if there is such a thing as an ancient conspiracy theory, it's this.
With its towering stone pillars and haunting animal carvings, has baffled scientists for decades. For years, only fragments of the story were visible above ground, feeding endless speculation. But in 2025, archaeologists uncovered something that would change everything. What they found beneath the stones didn't just answer an ancient question, it rewrote the very origins of civilization. Was it a temple, a shrine, or something far stranger? Keep watching as we uncover more. Historical backdrop. High on a barren plateau in southeastern Turkey lies one of the most extraordinary archaeological discoveries of the modern age, Göbekli Tepe. The site, with its colossal T-shaped megaliths,
is this, I think they said it's a 100,000 square foot temple, and it has these giant 16-foot pillars in the middle of them.
And exquisitely carved depictions of animals, snakes, scorpions, and abstract symbols dates back to roughly 9,600 BC, a staggering 7,000 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza, and even predating Stonehenge by millennia. Each towering pillar, some weighing as much as 20 tons, rises from circular enclosures arranged with uncanny precision. Many of the stones bear elaborate carvings, like foxes, vultures, wild boar, and lions, that seem to form a bestiary of the prehistoric imagination. These are not random decorations. The artistry is deliberate, stylized, and symbolic, suggesting a people with not just skill, but also a worldview and ritual framework far more sophisticated than once believed possible at this early date. You won't believe what's about to be revealed. When first excavated in the 1990s, Göbekli Tepe was heralded as the world's oldest temple. Archaeologists proposed that nomadic hunter-gatherers gathered at this sacred mountaintop to perform communal rituals before dispersing back into the wild. In this telling, it was a shrine of the wandering Paleolithic tribes, a holy place where feasting, ceremony, and perhaps sacrifice united clans. The idea was revolutionary. It meant that monumental architecture, and possibly religion itself, preceded agriculture, rather than the other way around. Civilization, it seemed, did not spring from the fields, but from faith. Temples gave rise to farming, not farming to temples. And yet, despite decades of work, only an estimated 5 to 10% of the site has been excavated. The rest still lies buried beneath the earth, sealed away for 12,000 years. What little we see is only a fragment of a much larger puzzle. Each season reveals new stones, new carvings, and new questions. This veil of partial knowledge has fueled an enormous volume of mystery and speculation. Scholars, journalists, and enthusiasts alike wonder, who were the builders? What knowledge did they possess? Were the pillars meant to connect with the stars, mark the changing seasons, or commemorate some forgotten cataclysm? Even mainstream archaeologists admit the answers remain elusive. Göbekli Tepe is both dazzling and frustrating, an enigmatic gift from deep prehistory, whispering stories in symbols we have not yet learned to fully read. And so, while the Temple of the Hunter-Gatherers narrative remains popular, cracks in that interpretation have begun to show. For what is emerging from the soil does not always match the tidy version of history we thought we knew. It just got interesting. As the excavation deepened, so too did the mysteries. Over the years, new discoveries began to challenge the neat picture of Göbekli Tepe as nothing more than a ceremonial sanctuary. This matters because it complicates the old linear story. First came farming, then cities, then temples. Göbekli Tepe hints at something different, that the impulse for ritual and symbolic architecture may have pushed humans towards settlement and agriculture, rather than being a byproduct of them. The pillars may have risen not only over feasts, but also over firesides where people ground seeds, prepared meals, and perhaps even raised families. Then came the even more provocative interpretations, the stars. Among the carved stones, some researchers noticed repeating symbols, most famously the so-called V-shaped markings and the mysterious imagery on Pillar 43, often called the vulture stone. The images of scorpions, vultures, and headless figures were argued by some to be more than symbolic animals. Could they instead be an astronomical code? One theory suggests that the carvings represent constellations, functioning as a kind of prehistoric calendar system marking the movement of the sun, moon, and stars. Others take it further, proposing that Göbekli Tepe is a memorial of a cataclysm, possibly the impact of a comet during the Younger Dryas period around 10,900 BC, which many scientists believe triggered abrupt climate shifts and the extinction of Ice Age megafauna. If correct, the vulture stone could be history's oldest record of a natural disaster, encoded not in writing, but in symbolic art. These astronomical readings are controversial. Mainstream archaeologists caution against projecting modern star maps onto prehistoric carvings. Yet, the persistence of the idea reflects something important. Göbekli Tepe unsettles our comfortable assumptions. It refuses to sit neatly in any single-box temple, village, or observatory. The site's ambiguity has bred a paradigm shift in how we imagine early civilization. Instead of a clear ladder, hunters become farmers. Farmers become settlers. Settlers build temples. Göbekli Tepe suggests that spirituality, community, survival, and astronomy may have all developed together in overlapping, messy, and unexpected ways. What makes this so unsettling is that it forces us to question not just the builders of Göbekli Tepe, but also our own story of human progress. Were we driven forward by hunger, by survival, or by the stars? Did faith build civilization, or did civilization give rise to faith? The pillars, silent and immovable for over 11,000 years, seem to hint that the answer is not either-or, but something much more complex. 2025 breakthrough moment. For decades, Göbekli Tepe lingered in half-light, partly excavated, partly hidden, always mysterious. Scholars debated endlessly. Was it a temple, a shrine, or a gathering ground for wandering hunters? Each season unearthed more stones, more carvings, yet the central question of what was this place really remained maddeningly unresolved. That all changed in 2025. In the blazing summer heat, a team of archaeologists working just beyond the central enclosures began to notice unusual soil patterns beneath their feet. Ground-penetrating radar had hinted at something bigger, but the readings seemed almost unbelievable. A vast, rectilinear structure stretching beneath the slope. Months of careful excavation followed, layer by layer, until the outlines of a buried multi-room complex emerged. What they uncovered would rewrite the story not just of Göbekli Tepe, but of civilization itself. Beneath the towering stone pillars, beneath the carved foxes and scorpions, lay the remains of a thriving year-round settlement. Walls of connected rooms, some circular, others rectangular, spread outward like the floor plan of a small village. Hearths blackened with ancient ash spoke of daily fires where meals were prepared. Storage pits carved into the bedrock suggested planning, surplus, and community organization. Grinding stones lay scattered in corners, still dusted with residues of wild cereals. And here and there, carved posts and altars showed that ritual and domestic life were not separate, but woven seamlessly together. It was the missing piece. The revelation struck like thunder. Göbekli Tepe was never only a temple. It was a settlement, a lived-in place. Its towering pillars were not isolated monuments, but the spiritual heart of a community, integrated into the very fabric of their daily existence. For decades, the old model had drawn a sharp line between ritual and residence, between sacred sites and the hearths of ordinary life. The hunters, it was said, had no homes here, only gathering grounds. But the multi-room complex shattered that illusion. The people of Göbekli Tepe did not just worship at the edge of the wild. They lived here, they built here, they ate and slept and dreamed here. The excavation revealed communal halls, rooms large enough to host dozens, where food could have been prepared or feasts shared. Nobody was prepared for what they found next. Smaller chambers, with hearths still intact, likely served as family spaces. Some rooms showed niches carved into the walls, perhaps for storing tools or food. In others, low benches suggested seating areas, places where people gathered around a firelight. The artifacts sealed the case. Obsidian blades, bone tools, beads, and decorated objects hinted at craftsmanship and trade. A finely polished stone bowl, found in one of the hearth rooms, bore residues of cooked grains, offering the strongest evidence yet of daily meals on site. Together, these discoveries dismantled the last doubts. Göbekli Tepe was not a remote shrine for nomads, but a proto-city, one of the earliest true settlements in human history. And in this, the "what was it" question finally found its answer. Göbekli Tepe was the birthplace of both the sacred and the domestic. It was at once a sanctuary, a village, and a meeting ground. Its pillars did not stand apart from life, but grew out of it, just as the rituals of its people grew out of the cycles of cooking, building, planting, and remembering. This breakthrough did more than solve a mystery. It redefined the arc of civilization. For here was proof that the divide between temple and home, between ritual and survival, was artificial. At the dawn of history, these things were one and the same. And so, in 2025, beneath the soil of Anatolia, the world's oldest mystery gave up its secret. Göbekli Tepe was not simply the first temple, it was the first community. The announcement reverberated across the archaeological world, but within the trenches of Göbekli Tepe, the moment was far more intimate. The lead excavator whispered that he never expected to find homes beneath this stone temple, his voice almost lost beneath the hum of wind across the plateau. His hands were streaked with dust, his shirt soaked with sweat. Yet his eyes glowed with wonder. "We came looking for a ritual. We found life." Those who were there remember the silence first, the hush that fell as trowels scraped across the hardened floor of the buried complex. Dust hung in the air, catching sunlight in golden beams. Then came the widening of a doorway, an entrance carved thousands of years ago, sealed by time itself. As the archaeologists eased inside, the beam of a flashlight illuminated a flat chiseled floor. In the corner, a hearth. Nearby, stone bins carved into the bedrock. One of the younger excavators dropped to her knees, her breath catching as she brushed ash that had lain untouched for more than 11 millennia. The atmosphere was electric. Some wept quietly. Others simply stared, as though caught between the present and the distant past. One recalled the faint smell of charred earth as the hearth's layers were exposed. Another described the coolness of the chamber, the way the stone walls seemed to drink the torchlight. In a shallow depression, they uncovered a grinding stone worn smooth by countless hands. As the archaeologists touched its surface, they imagined the sound of grain being crushed, the rhythm of daily life echoing across thousands of years. From that moment onward, Göbekli Tepe was transformed. It was no longer just a site of ritual. It was a place you could feel people living in. The floors still bore the imprint of footsteps. The walls whispered of laughter, of arguments, of stories told by firelight. Experts marveled at the implications. "This is the bridge," one said, "the place where the sacred and the ordinary were never divided." The builders of Göbekli Tepe weren't simply worshippers. They were families, neighbors, innovators. They didn't just gather here, they stayed. For the first time, archaeologists could picture it vividly. Smoke curling into twilight skies, the smell of roasted meat, the soft murmur of voices rising from stone chambers, and above it all the looming presence of the great T-pillars, guardians of a people who lived and prayed as one. At that moment, the mystery was not simply solved, it was brought alive. Just keep watching, because the story doesn't end here. Impacts and implications. The 2025 discovery did more than solve a puzzle. It rewrote the very foundations of prehistory. For decades, Göbekli Tepe had been treated as a ceremonial outlier, a sacred mountain where nomads gathered briefly before vanishing back into the wild. But the multi-room complex shattered that narrative. These were not wandering temple builders. They were settled, complex communities with rituals interwoven into daily life. This shift rippled outward to the broader Taş Tepeler cultural landscape, a chain of Neolithic sites across southeastern Turkey. At Karahan Tepe, excavations revealed stone pillars arranged in similar circles, alongside clear evidence of domestic activity. Other nearby sites, Sayburç, Sefer Tepe, and Harbetsuvan, showed comparable blends of ritual architecture and habitation. The pattern was undeniable. Here's the shocking twist. These were not isolated shrines. They were networked settlements, cultural siblings, and together they formed one of the earliest known civilizational clusters on Earth. For archaeology, the lesson was humbling. A single excavation trench, a single unexpected doorway, had overturned decades of assumptions. What was once framed as a temple divorced from life is now seen as part of a vibrant, interconnected world where survival, spirituality, and society evolved together. In the space of months, the ground beneath Göbekli Tepe had upended the story of human origins. And so, Göbekli Tepe must now be reframed not as a temple alone, nor as a village alone, but as a cultural hub, where daily life and sacred ritual were inseparable. Picture the scene. A family gathers grain in stone bowls, carrying food into the great circular enclosure. Children chase one another between the pillars while elders prepare offerings at carved altars. At night, fires flicker inside stone chambers, the smoke rising into the sky where stars wheel silently above. The same people who prayed to carved animals by torchlight also slept nearby, ground grain, and stored food in pits carved into the earth. This was not separation of the sacred and the mundane. It was fusion, a society where communal feasts, rituals, and survival needs flowed together into a seamless rhythm of existence. The pillars that once seemed cold, monuments now pulse with new life, as markers of a place where community was lived, celebrated, and sanctified all at once. That's not all. Göbekli Tepe was not just the first temple, nor simply the first village. It was both. It was the point where humanity began weaving its two most enduring threads, the need to live and the need to believe. And yet, for all that 2025 revealed, Göbekli Tepe remains far from fully uncovered. Less than 10% of the site has been excavated, leaving vast chambers, enclosures, and layers still sealed beneath the soil. Each stone unearthed hints at more waiting in the dark below. The breakthrough also casts fresh light on the wider Taş Tepeler landscape. Sites like Karahan Tepe astonish with their massive enclosures and carved human figures. At Sayburç, intricate reliefs depict hunting scenes etched into the very walls of Neolithic buildings. At Urfa, the discovery of the Urfa man, the world's oldest known naturalistic human statue, suggests a culture deeply invested in representation and memory. And beyond, at Sefer Tepe, Ayanlar Hoyuk, and Harbet Suvan, archaeologists are finding still more echoes of Göbekli Tepe's unique blend of settlement and sanctity. These connections raise new mysteries. If one settlement could integrate ritual and residence so seamlessly, how many more remain buried? What cultural networks bound these sites together? Were they united by shared rituals, shared symbols, or perhaps shared responses to the changing climate of the Younger Dryas? As much as has been solved, the incompleteness of our knowledge is perhaps the most exciting truth. Göbekli Tepe is not a closed book, but the opening chapter of a far larger story, one still being written with every trench, every stone, every grain of ash sifted from Anatolia's soil. The pillars have spoken, but their full language is yet to be heard. Could ancient people have been far more advanced than we've ever imagined? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Also, click on the next video on your screen. You'll love it.